welcome to Worldwide Fertility Care Week. So to start off our week, we are sharing fertility care stories. And to start off our week, Colleen is here with us. She's going to share a bit more about her fertility care story, and we're going to jump right into it. So Colleen, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and anything else you'd like to share.
Sure. Thanks for having me. And I'm really honored to talk to you all about sort of the journey I've been on. I should say my husband and I have been on for almost 2 years now, but just a little bit about myself and my husband. We are currently we live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so western side of Pennsylvania. We've been married for just 4 years in December. Together for about almost 13 years total. So we've had a lot of time together. We are avid, just like any Pittsburgh people, we're avid Pittsburgh sports fans. We like to get out and hike. We like the outdoors. We just, really like to just be active and enjoy each other's company. We've done that a lot, obviously, this past year, like a lot of us have. So we've found new ways to just kind of keep our activities, trying to change it up, and tried snowshoeing and snowshoeing and cross-country skiing this winter. Just doing all kinds of different things. So I am a pediatric occupational therapist, so I work with children from ages 3 to 21 is our school range. Love my job, love all the kids and teenagers that I get to work with. And my husband works in sort of a strategic planning. He does, it's called supply management, so he does that. So we have pretty different jobs, but which I think sometimes is a good thing. But yeah, so just that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Well, thank you. Go ahead and talk to us about how you got started with the Creighton model. What led you to wanting to learn how to chart with the Creighton model?
Okay, so I think this and why in my fertility journey will kind of just all melt together with those two types of questions. So basically our fertility journey started about 2 years ago. We knew about a year after we got married, we were I was on the birth control pill for a few years prior to finally saying, okay, a year, we've been married a year. I went off the pill and started to sort of chart in my own way, not necessarily using Creighton at that point, to just kind of track cycles, see how things were going. And to my surprise, things went right back to what I would say a normal 27, 28 day cycle. So I kind of watched that for about a year and a half. And then we kind of started, okay, we're ready. I think I got this down. It seems pretty typical. So we start. About 6 months in, I kind of was thinking, okay, this hasn't happened. It's pretty typical, but we'll see what happens. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, I don't know if something's not right. We're both young, we're healthy. I just turned 30, my husband's 32. So at that point, I'm 28 and he's 30. I'm like, something's up to me. So I briefed that with my regular OB/GYN at my yearly exam, which probably at that point was about 9 to 10 months into trying. And he's like, okay, everything seems like normal. We'll do some blood work. We'll check it out. And, if nothing happens, we can start you on some medications like, Clomid or Letrozole or something to see if that helps, if that's what you would like to proceed with. I said, okay. So a few more months went by and I was frustrated and I called him. I said, all right, let's try this. So I started that, I want to say maybe, and did that with him maybe 3 or 4 months, March, April, and May, I think, of that year. And nothing had happened. And then I said, okay, he said, maybe you should go to see a reproductive endocrinologist at that point. It's been a year. I said, okay. So I make that appointment. We go through that, and we actually did a few more months of Clomid and actually tried 3 IUIs at that point throughout the summertime. So that was May, June, and July, all which were unsuccessful. And at that point, the reproductive endocrinologist said to me, I think you have what's unexplained infertility. I said, well, okay, what does that mean? And can you tell me more of why you think that is? And basically, I mean, unexplained to them is that I don't want to say is that they stop looking for what's wrong or they just don't know, but that's how they term it. And, so the doctor said, well, we could try this more, but then, the words IVF start coming into the play. And I was like, wait, like, this is like kind of fast. I don't necessarily agree with the unexplained diagnosis. So I said, I think we're going to take a break from that type of route. And I just kind of was like, okay, we'll just look at some new options. Like, let's try to look at new avenues. So I am Catholic. My husband and I are both Catholic, and attend regularly church and are involved with our church and functions. And we're talking to our priest one evening. And at this point, I had researched ways to sort of, what is this unexplained fertility? And I came across Creighton and NaProTechnology and how, NaProTechnology is basically the to get to the root of the cause of somebody's infertility or their, reproductive issues. So basically restorative reproductive medicine. And I said, okay, I think this is the way I really should go. And, with social media and everything, it was kind of interesting because I started just putting in that hashtag and then following different people. And then I came across Faustina Fertility Care, which oddly enough, St. Faustina is my confirmation saint. So I felt like it was almost like fate that it was like I showed up, and I contacted Kristen and I said, hey, I really think I want to look into this method of charting. I want to make an appointment with a NaPro, doctor. And she had like a session like the next day. So I was just like, that's great, so I could learn how to chart. And so that kind of got sort of me started with Creighton, and then just further how I got into the NaProTechnology was just, we're talking to our parish priest, and he said, hey, I know a guy who just moved back here from another state, and he's practicing not far from here. And at that point, I was supposed to go and have an appointment with a doctor across the state in Eastern Pennsylvania, so in like Philly area. That was the closest person to me. So it kind of fate kind of just worked out, and someone had moved closer, and I had an appointment with him, and then kind of things just took off from there. So I would just say like the biggest thing for me and how I found Creighton, and which I'm so thankful I did, is just because I just didn't accept that somebody was telling me that, there's nothing wrong, when I just felt like there's something more to why I was not able to conceive. So.
And then what happened next? You went and saw that NaPro doctor that's close to you, and you've been on quite a journey since that first appointment. So go ahead and tell everyone, you've gone from, so to recap, you've gone from unexplained infertility, and now you're going to a NaPro doctor. And what do they tell you?
Yeah, so in all the time that I have been dealing with, about a year and a half of unexplained infertility from what they called it, I found out, had a diagnosis within 2 months of being with a NaPro doctor. So it was actually just this past November, I had an appointment, my first appointment with him. And he did agree, looking at like blood work that I've had, ultrasounds that I've had from just the workup of anyone prior, of the doctors prior. Yeah, everything looks pretty good. I mean, nothing was glaringly off, nothing, so he's like, okay, so here's what I think. And boy, did he hit the nail on the head. He said, I've seen this before multiple times in my years, practicing, that there's people like you who have underlying endometriosis and they have no symptoms. And I guess I should back up and say, even prior to being on the birth control pill, I didn't go on the pill because I was like, had super heavy periods or had pain or was missing school or was missing, I played sports my whole life into college. I kind of think that I kind of just was put on that for that reason. Like, hey, I don't want to have to deal with this being as like a heavier, period. Not that it was super heavy, but, doctors are like, oh, we'll just give you the birth control pill. And then once coming off of it, things went back to normal. I never had pain. I never had cramps. I never had heavy bleeding. So it never really did occur that could be an issue. I never had any of the telltale signs that most deal with endometriosis. But at my appointment, he said, I think we need to check for it. He said there's a lot of people that just infertility is their only symptom and they don't know that they have it until they get to this point in their life and can't conceive. And being that, I said it's unfortunate that it does take exploratory laparoscopic procedure, so it's a surgery to diagnose it. But I walked out of November, that office in November, and signed the consent and said, hey, I'm just ready to do it, because at some point you get to that point where you want an answer and you want to feel like there's something and be validated that, you know, there's something going on. So my surgery was scheduled for December 23rd. They did the exploratory laparoscopic procedure and found that I did have, at that point, I did have what he actually called a stage 3 endometriosis. So it's out of 4 stages. It was unfortunate that he said, you know, if it was 1 or 2, or was a little on the milder side, he would have been able to take it out like with the laser at that point, at that surgery. But as soon as I woke up, I asked the nurse, I said, how many incisions do I have? Because I knew if I was going to have 3 or 4 that he was able to get anything. And if I had 2, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to go back. So as soon as I heard I had 2, I said, okay, well, here's my options. He either found nothing or he found more than what he could remove at that time. So even at that point, I feel like I was pretty relieved. And later to find out that, and I didn't really find this out until I got to the car. Unfortunately, with COVID restrictions, I had to be in the hospital by myself in that time. You know, and I got in and I said to my mom and my husband, I said, well, he found more than he could get, didn't he? And they said, yeah, they did. He did. And I was upset, but I also was relieved to a point. That time goes past. So that was December 23rd. And by February 17th, I actually had my second, definitely more, I'm going to say aggressive, but invasive, much longer procedure to remove the endometriosis, which he believed to have gotten everything that he could visibly see. I think he really took margins when he was in there. He really made them larger to make sure that he got everything that even if it was microscopic, that may have been outside of where he saw the disease. But yeah, so that's all happened since November to now, with a diagnosis and 2 surgeries. And I actually see him on Wednesday of this week. So we'll be kind of reviewing my surgery and then kind of planning for what we're going to be doing, checking probably blood work and ultrasounds, just to cover all bases and move forward with that. So it has been a very crazy few months. So
Absolutely. And remind me again, how long have you been charting? So, well, how long were you charting before you had your first appointment with the NaPro doctor?
I had been charting about 3 or 4 months before
Okay.
that. And I know, like, you have, and you had mentioned too with the charting, like just even checking, okay, like, where's your, how long is your post-peak phase and what's going on with that with the progesterone, and sort of the finding even some of those biomarkers that are just easy to tell from your charting what might be also attributing to, different problems that people may be running into. So that has been helpful as well. So.
And what was the hardest part when you first started to chart? Because you had said that prior to learning the Creighton model, you were kind of keeping track of your cycles, you kind of knew what was going on. So going from that, where you're just keeping track but not using a specific method, what was the hardest part of then learning the Creighton model?
I think for me, like, I'm a super fast person. Like, I just want to be like fast. Like, I'm in and out of the bathroom. Like, I just, like, sometimes I don't even have time to go to the bathroom during the day because I'm so busy at work, and just happen to like really pay attention with like the charting of using the mucus method of charting, and really like taking the time to realize, okay, this is what's happening. And then I also think just having, like, wanting the perfect charts. Like, I'm a perfectionist and I want things to look like perfect, and you're like, you want things to look perfect on paper. And I think that, not like realizing like mine wasn't totally perfect and my post peak phase was a little bit too short. that I need to be doing supplementing with progesterone to make that cycle almost look like it needs to look. So I think just even accepting like, oh, there are some things that aren't quite perfect on paper for me. So I think those are the two hardest points.
And then you're not alone in feeling that. I think a lot of women, that's some of their hardest parts about learning the method, especially the being in a hurry. And you really have to take the time. It's not a lot of extra time in your day and part of your routine, but you have to be intentional about your time when you're going to the bathroom and when you're observing those biomarkers of the mucus. So that's the hardest part. What's been the best part of learning the Creighton model? What are you really grateful for when it comes to the Creighton model?
Well, I mean, I think just in general, like just the like overall health of my reproductive health, like, obviously the goal is to eventually conceive naturally, but just even seeing like, okay, like with adding in the progesterone suppositories, like how good my cycle looked that month. And again, like I know I talked to you about, I started it right before my surgery, like the month before, and it looks, I know you made a comment like, wow, that's like a perfect looking cycle. And kind of since I had it, I'm just going to start getting back to doing that now, just because of the timing of everything and the so many surgeries in such a short amount of time, that I just kind of let that by the wayside a little bit. But we'll be starting that back up this month. But yeah, I think just like seeing that, like that you can really impact it. It can be impacted by even just like small subtle changes, and just seeing like, oh, how would anyone ever know that if you weren't charting, you really wouldn't know that your post-peak phase is 4 or 5 days less than what people really want it to be. So I mean, because sometimes I think people get into the mindset like, oh, this is just my normal, but like doesn't mean normal is like optimal, or your normal is the best for the season of life that you're in. Just because it's your normal, you know what I mean, doesn't mean that
Absolutely.
it's the best.
Yeah, we hear that all the time where they go, but that's what I normally have, and normal doesn't always mean healthy. And I think you just said it perfectly, that the chart was showing you those areas before you even went to the doctor, which is pretty crazy. One of the things that I love about the Creighton model is it allows us to kind of take an inside look of what's going on with our reproductive health. As far as anyone that's watching this and is thinking about maybe starting to learn the Creighton model, learning how to chart, do you have any advice for them to get started, or what you wish you would have known before you jumped into this?
Well, I wish I would have known about it earlier. I will say that. But I'm sure, and like I said, like this, hindsight's 2020, literally this year. But I mean, I'm just glad I found it when I did, versus, like later on, or if I would have like went down the path I was in, that, not that I think sometimes people just, I want to say they don't advocate for themselves, but they're so desperate to get to where they want to be that they will kind of not slow down and look at the whole picture and say, okay, is this really the best? Or, like I said, I couldn't really accept the unexplained diagnosis. I don't, and some people I don't think even know there's this other option of looking, that to give you more hope and give you maybe more answers to what is going on with you. So yeah, I mean, I guess I wish I would have had it, known about it sooner, or started it sooner. And I would say, like now I know, God willing, I have a daughter someday, that like she will start this like when she's a teenager, because I've had, again, like underlying endometriosis probably since I started getting a period and I didn't know it. Not to say that I had like, it's a little bit more excusable on the fact that I wasn't a person with all the symptoms that most get. So it wasn't as noticeable, or, when I say able to be diagnosed as easily for me. But I think there is a lot of people just, and now doing my own research and connecting with people that are just dismissed for years and years and years about their pain and their, it's debilitating for some. And like I said, I feel for those people, because I couldn't imagine dealing with pain that I've, sort of met people and hear their stories. And I can't believe that doctors will just say, oh, here's the birth control pill, it'll So, and it may suppress their symptoms, but it doesn't treat the problem or treat the treat the endometriosis. So
Right.
I think the biggest thing is just don't take unexplained as your diagnosis. There are options and ways to find out more answers, and just kind of, and be patient with it, because you have to learn it. It took me I'd say 2-3 months to really feel like really comfortable with it. And just try to stay diligent with it, every day. Try to write down, because you go a few days and you're like, oh crap, what was that day? Or you may have forgotten.
Yeah.
So just try to be diligent with your charting, because I'm guilty of it too. So I would say some advice there.
Excellent. Do you have any other comments or anything that you wanted to talk about during this time celebrating the Creighton Model and NaProTechnology?
I think, and I know we talked about this too, that it's super important to be doing everything that your doctor is telling you, doing your chart reviews, all of that. But I also think there's, depending on what comes of either a diagnosis or whether, whatever it may be, to also look to other health professionals to support your journey, whether it's for, whatever that may be. Because I just know my doctor, he told me, I said, I think I'm gonna meet with a functional medicine doctor, and I work with a dietitian that is specific to endometriosis, because there's just so much to it with foods and inflammation, special diets, that you shouldn't necessarily always just say, oh, I'm going to go on this diet, because that's not like a one size fits all, whether you have endometriosis or PCOS or insulin resistance or whatever you might have. It's it's definitely, I think, important to meet with the dietitian that will get you on a plan that's like good for you. Because I think people will just kind of like be like, oh, I'm going to go on keto, or I'm going to do low carb, or and that necessarily doesn't always help. And you want to make sure you're eating the right foods, and and staying away from some of the foods that may be causing your body to be having negative reactions in any way, which I thought I've been doing, and has been helpful. And your doctor can, the NaPro doctors, they can only do so much inside their scope. So I think sometimes looking at like a whole body approach is really, really helpful. And not that they're not for that. It's just sometimes some of the testing that that a functional doctor may do is not testing that your doctor might do. Their just scopes are different. So I've been working with a functional doctor who has also tested a lot of the hormonal values that my NaPro doctor would test, but has done every other panel I think that my body could have, and including like a full thyroid panel, which is super important. I've learned a lot about the thyroid and how important that is to your reproductive health. And if something is even slightly off with those levels, like that could be a cause of at least like a fertility problem. But it also is not good for your body either, because it's just usually your thyroid is, like I said, it's really just a really big part of your health. So just looking at all the different parts of the body and how it impacts your reproductive health and how you feel. Like I said, it can, fertility aside, like you may be feeling fatigued or sluggish, or cold, or like you have all these different symptoms, and it could be related to something else that maybe your doctor may not be looking at entirely, because it's not like their focus is on your reproductive health, not necessarily like the entire body health. They care about it, but yeah, it's just.
And they've been doing a good job kind of all working together and encouraging the work of everyone together. And that's nice to have that, because sometimes when you go into those doctor's appointments, they don't want you doing anything other than what they're doing. So they've all been working together really nicely for you, which is a huge bonus. Well, thank you so much, Colleen, for taking the time to share your story. I know there's a lot of people out there who have the diagnosis of unexplained infertility, and they don't really know where to go next or what to do, because generally the only options presented to them are IVF. So I'm so thankful that you're able to share your story, and thank you for allowing me to be on this fertility journey with you. It's a pleasure. I enjoy it very much. If anyone has any questions for Colleen, you can go ahead and put them in the comment box under this video, and she'll be taking a look at that, and I will too, and we'll hopefully be able to get back to you. So again, thank you, Colleen, and I look forward to talking to you probably in a few weeks or so.
Sounds good. Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.